know, may just be me, but I really got a feeling like we could catch fire and have a great season, huh? Now, who's with me?
Woo! The electric in the air!
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be
The Cleats First, Logic Second Football Podcast with your hosts, Alexander Lauber and Phil Almodovar.
Welcome back to the Cleats First, Logic Second Football Podcast. Today we're going to be discussing the Champions League and Europa League draws for the quarterfinals, and then looking ahead to the semifinals and finals, at least what we know so far and how the matchups might come to look out. But Phil, some interesting draws coming out of this and some interesting storylines to follow. Games aside, it'll make for some interesting watching in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and leave it to the Champions League and Europa League to have just things that almost seem scripted every single year, year in and year out. It's going to once again be a dramatic finish to European competition, and I can't wait to see how things play out. Alex, how about we jump right into it with the Champions League? What's coming up on April 6th, 7th, 13th, and 14th? So first we have Manchester City taking on Dortmund. This is a really interesting matchup, Alex. Of course, a Manchester City squad that just seems like it's firing on all cylinders this season against a Dortmund team that has failed to gain any traction domestically, but in Europe has been playing decent football, of course, with their win against Sevilla over two legs, getting Haaland the ball in good areas. The question is, can they continue to do that against a much better defense, arguably, in what Manchester City has?
Yeah, I don't think it's with question that Manchester City has the better defense and even midfield. Haaland, we know, is a very strong attacker, and we know when fit, Jadon Sancho is a phenomenal right winger. On top of that, you have support with players like Brandt. Dortmund can be a very strong team, but at the same time, they're shaky. When you look at Manchester City, at this point, you have a perfect team. Their defense is strong with Diaz and Stones, and even then, with players like Laporte on the bench, it's not getting worse in rotation. Things are clicking with João Cancelo now. Their midfield is gunning. You have a player like Ilkay Gundogan, who's coming out and having the best season of his career by far. Debatably a shout for player of the season for the Premier League. With the attack that we know that they have, I just think that Man City have the potential to storm over Dortmund. It's not impossible, and Dortmund has the talent to surpass this challenge, but over two legs, I give them little chance against Manchester City.
I agree, Alex. We'll see what happens in that battle. Moving on to the next draw, Porto versus Chelsea. Another very interesting draw in the fact that it looks like Porto might just be our Cinderella team this year in the Champions League after knocking out Juventus surprisingly in the last round. They take on a Chelsea side that have been revived by Thomas Tuchel, seemingly. Alex, the big thing here, I think, is the defense for Chelsea. If you look at the numbers, Chelsea's expected goals against has dropped dramatically ever since Tuchel took control, which just goes to show how far he has gone in giving this team structure. Can this be the blow that knocks out Porto's Cinderella hopes?
Well, look, yes, Chelsea's defense has looked significantly stronger. On paper, Chelsea are the stronger team by a country mile. Their goaltending is still, questionable, even with Mendy at this point. Like you said, their defense has strengthened up. We know the potential that a player like Antonio Rudiger has in the back there, someone who's been a non-factor for the longest of times. Finally finds something in his fellow German and Tuchel who believes in him and who can bring the best out of him. Like you said, that defensive core is really strengthening up. If you look in the attack again, the midfield seems to be starting to gel. The attack starts to be gelling. And when it comes to Porto, like you said, it's more of a Cinderella story. There aren't any major threats. But if you look at that back line, 38-year-old Pepe is still running the field. and keeping things on lock when it comes to nullifying opposition attacks. So at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a chess match, and it's really which defense can get broken down first. We saw what Porto could do against Juventus. I think it's possible for them to pull off a Cinderella story, but over two legs, I still think it'll be hard pressed for Porto to come out of this on top.
Yeah, I think they're going to need a little bit of magic to get it through over two legs. Even with the goaltending situation, Alex, if no matter who Tuchel decides to throw in there, I mean, if you look at Kepa in the past few matches that he started under Tuchel, he's looked even better coming out of those matches. Tuchel seems a lot more confident in his goalkeeping, a lot more standoffish in the fact that if you let in a goal, if you concede, it's not the end of the world. Keep your head up and keep playing. And it's made loads of difference for these two players, Kepa and Mendy, in goal. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Porto over two legs against a Chelsea team that has gotten a whole lot better in the past couple months. So if we go to the next draw, we have what seemingly looks like one that came a bit too early. Bayern taking on PSG, a rematch of last season's UCL final. Bayern coming into this fixture red hot after clobbering Lazio, and PSG with a convincing two legs against Barcelona. This is just a battle of the giants, Alex. And what do you feel like is going to be the key in this matchup?
I think the key is going to be doing what PSG couldn't do in the final last year, and that's breaking down the Bayern midfield and defense and being able to score the goals that we know that they can with that powerful attack. Yes, Bayern has shown some weakness this year, and so have PSG, admittedly, in the league. But if you still look at Bayern, Bayern is that quintessential perfect team. Again, this is a matchup that we could very well have been seeing in the finals, and we're seeing a lot earlier than that. But I think it's going to just be an all out fight for who can score the most goals. I think you might see things break down even on both ends defensively, and we know how sound both teams can be. It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. I think we might see a repeat of the outcome of last year's major matchup between the two squads. But even over two legs, I still think that Bayern is the favorite in this matchup.
Yeah, Alex, I think PSG have definitely improved since the last season. Yeah, they have dropped a little bit in the league, but they're playing really well in Europe. Mbappe and Neymar, of course, getting them in behind is going to be the key for them. It's as simple as that. You need to score goals. You couldn't score goals last time, score goals this time. And the defense really played well against Bayern last time, only let in a couple of goals. And if you're able to thwart that wing play that Bayern was able to do so well with against you last time, you have a chance. But going on to the opposite side of things, just like last season, I think the key is going to be how players like Thomas Muller and Kingsley Coman play. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see how things shake up. Last draw, Alex. Real Madrid versus Liverpool. This is a really interesting one. Both clubs have not been at their best domestically. What will it take for one to defeat the other?
When you look at this specifically, it has the potential to be an all out fight to score the most goals. But I think the question comes down to, at the end of the day, can Liverpool keep things tied together? Because they've seemed to be a completely different Liverpool. In the Champions League, you have players like Thiago who are playing phenomenal football, who have been struggling to adjust in the Premier League. Even their defense hasn't been too bad when it comes to the Champions League, but leave it to a manager like Zinedine Zidane to figure out how to break that down and break it up. And I think Real Madrid does have the potential to completely leave Liverpool in the dust and looking like they have in some of their bad matches. Again, we know the attack that Liverpool has. We know the ability for them to give it right back to them. I think it's going to be a hard fought duel. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, I think, probably the battle of Salah versus Benzema and who can do the most for their team, who can score the most for their team.
Yeah, Alex, I think Karim Benzema is quietly having a very solid season. Of course, overshadowed a lot of the time in the past by Ronaldo, even when Ronaldo left, by players still like Isco in the attack. Now really going center stage, has been able to keep Real Madrid somewhat, at the very least, in the title race in La Liga, and has been able to do well for Real Madrid in his appearances so far in the UCL. He's going to be the key going forward. If he could get past what is already a shoddy Liverpool defense, it might be a very long 2 matches for Liverpool. And Alex, going to the other side of things, I think the key for Liverpool is stopping that Real Madrid attack. I think Liverpool should have absolutely no doubt that they could produce against Real Madrid with the players that they have up top. Even with Sadio Mane not exactly having the season we expected him to have, Mo Salah, of course, is still producing. So we'll see how things go. But at the back, some of those rotation pieces like Kabak, like Davis, like Phillips need to show up in the big moments and thwart Karim Benzema.
Very true. Now, if we look ahead a little bit past these 2 matches, ahead to the semifinals, what UEFA also draws in addition to the matchups, they draw the potential matchups for the final. So the winner of the Manchester City Dortmund game will play the winner of Bayern Munich versus PSG. A lot of interesting possible matchups out of that. We can see a Der Klassiker come out of this with a Bayern versus Dortmund matchup. We can see another potential finals matchup or finals quality matchup in Bayern versus Manchester City.
Yes, Alex. And if you look to the other side, you have the winner of Real Madrid versus Liverpool, of course, playing against the winner of Porto versus Chelsea. Once again, a lot of interesting combinations come out of that as well. And Alex, the major point I wanted to bring up, and of course, like I said before to start the podcast, narratives in the UCL, of course, are large, seemingly things that almost seem scripted. What's more likely, a Der Klassiker semifinal or a Liverpool Chelsea semifinal?
I think if you look at the matchups, I would probably have to say a Liverpool Chelsea semifinal, which would be interesting to see English teams face off in the semifinal. And you even have the potential there of an all English final. And we'll go ahead to it. And the interesting storyline, too, you have the potential of an all English final in both Europa League and Champions League.
Which will be very interesting to see, Alex. I think Manchester City are definitely contenders to, at the very least, make the final. And on the other side, it looks like maybe Chelsea or Liverpool, with a little bit of magic, could definitely sneak through as well. We'll have to see how things go. It's going to be an exciting finish to the Champions League. Alex, we head to the other competition now, the Europa League, the quarterfinals. Things have been crazy in the Europa League. Let's lay out how that looks.
Yeah, like you said, this is the season of narratives. Some very big, interesting narratives coming out of Europa League. Some on the entertaining side of things, and some on the disgusting and disappointing side of things. But the quarterfinals played April 8th, leg 1, and the second leg will be played April 15th. If we look at the first matchup drawn, Granada versus Manchester United. Granada's been on a Cinderella run of the Europa League. An unlikely team to go as far as they have, but you always see teams like this travel this far. But they're faced up against a tough opponent in Manchester United. When you look at the way that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer plays his teams, he is a very defensive-minded coach. That's why we've seen a lot of nil-nils and a lot of 1-1s and these low-scoring draws out of Manchester United. It looks like this game might be a chess match if Ole doesn't take it to Granada full force.
Yeah, Alex, I feel like a lot of clubs, a lot of clubs tend to overlook Granada. They are a very sound squad defensively. And I think you could say a lot of those mid-table, those mid to high table, not exactly top 4, but maybe 4 to 6, 4 to 8 in the Liga. They've built they are built, a lot of them, around very strong defenses, and Granada is no different. They have shown in this competition that they can compete with some of the better teams in it so far. Manchester United, of course, is a whole nother animal. We know how well Manchester United have played so far this season on the attacking side of the ball. The key in this game is going to be great attack from Manchester United against great defense from Granada. Which team does better where? And can Granada get goals on the board if their defense plays well enough?
Exactly. The big question is going to be at the end of the day, can Bruno Fernandes be the key in unlocking that Granada defense and getting those key goals and those big goals? And inversely, can Granada counter well enough and catch Manchester United sleeping to get those key goals, but then be able to lock up the matches? Over two legs, very difficult, but we shall see how that plays out. In the next matchup, the fifth English team in European competitions competing in the quarterfinals, Arsenal will be taking on Slavia Praha. Arsenal making their way through a tough opponent in Olympiacos and passing through that storyline of last season and the disappointing loss there, versus a Slavia Praha team that, for the worse, is surrounded in controversy right now. We know that the second leg against Rangers broke down when Andre Kudela disgustingly racially abused Glenn Kamara. Unfortunately, it seems like this matchup might be shrouded in a bunch of ifs. The rumors of if Kudela will be questioned and possibly arrested if he travels to London. But, there is this extra fire, you can say, in this Arsenal side to overcome Slavia Praha, and the fact that Glenn Kamara is an academy product of Arsenal. So this obviously isn't a main storyline that either of these teams are going to want to go in and focus on in this match. And again, Arsenal do seem to be the clear favorite. But regardless, Slavia Praha, we know how gritty of a team they can be. There are some very clutch players like Jan Kuchta on the team who have been gunning at a top level and at a high level in the matches that he's played. I think this will be a gritty match, but at the end of the day, this is Arsenal's fixture to lose.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. And I think once again, the whole controversy definitely will light a fire under the Arsenal players to play better, play to win against a team who they feel like they, I don't want to say deserve to beat, but should in the end take victory against amid everything that's gone on. Also, I want to say too, huge respect and shout out to Celtic Football Club with the way that they handled the situation. Their captain, of course, embracing Glenn Kamara before their old firm derby match this past weekend. I mean, just a very class, very respectful way of dealing with things in such a heated derby, telling the world that there's still people and this is more than a game and everyone deserves to be respected. Big display of love and hope from Celtic and Rangers respectively there. In the end, this is a football match over two legs, and no matter who ends up stepping on the field for Slavia Praha, it's still going to be a heated match, just like any Europa League tie. And I do agree, Alex. I think this is Arsenal's tie to lose, but it's still going to be close, as we've seen Slavia Praha has done well so far this competition. So it's not like it's going to be a complete walking over for Arsenal. It is going to be tough, but of course, we'll see how things go.
Exactly. It's going to, at the end of the day, come down to players like Martin Odegaard and Emil Smith-Rowe, Bukayo Saka, these players who can break that Slavia Praha defense. And we know if Arsenal get things clicking, there's a chance for them to steamroll through games. But it's really, at the end of the day, going to be Arsenal versus themselves and not letting lethargic play get the best of them and let them get on the back foot. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. When we come on to a bigger matchup and a clash up of two large clubs, AFC Ajax versus AS Roma. Phil, this is a real clash of two titans. And when you look at Ajax, yes, they're a team of they're a shell of their former selves and how they were a few years ago when they went on that really deep run in the Champions League. But still, with players like Dusan Tadic, 13 goals and 12 assists this season, he's going to be clutch in leading that team. But against another sound team like AS Roma, with players like Mkhitaryan in the lineup, he's another one who's been key to that Roma side clicking and scoring. I can see this being a high-scoring matchup, and I can see either one of these teams realistically making it through and making it on to the next round.
Yeah, Alex, it's going to be really interesting. I can't really tell you right now who I would say would win this match. It's really close. Two very high powered attacks, two clubs that are playing very well domestically and in Europe. So it's going to come down to, well, who's going to win this chess match? It might come down to the managers, really, because both teams, as we've seen, do have very talented players. Ajax, Dusan Tadic, David Neres, some of these players that, despite everything going on, despite a lack of that star power that Ajax once have, they still do have very solid role players in that squad. Same thing really with Roma. Players that do their job really well, and despite there being players that have left there, you still have that core of players, Mkhitaryan and Dzeko and others, that have been able to keep this club afloat in European competition. So we'll see how things go, Alex. I think this is definitely going to be the closest matchup of them all in terms of the Europa League ties and the most interesting to watch. And who knows, it might come down to an away goal.
No, it's very true, and I agree with you. I think this is on paper one of the more even matches or matchups of the four for Europa League. Nonetheless, I think both of these teams will have to fight their hardest to make it through to the semis. If we look at the final tie, Dinamo Zagreb versus Villarreal. Zagreb buzzing after that huge comeback victory against Tottenham after getting thrashed in the first leg in a game that Tottenham really should have put away much faster and by a bigger score line. Being able to show a bit of magic in their return leg and being able to come out of extra time the winners, a player like Mislav Orsic playing phenomenally, begging a hat trick in that matchup, pushing that team ahead. They're going to be coming up against a team that while they are on the fall from grace in La Liga, Villarreal is still a very sound team, and they're playing against a master of the Europa League, Unai Emery, someone who's won the cup multiple times. This should be a really good matchup, Phil.
Yes, Alex. And I like Zagreb in this matchup. When you look at who has the momentum coming into it, yes, both teams won their prior ties, but Zagreb, with the passion, with the fervor that they're able to come back and beat Tottenham, a very good squad. It was fun to watch. They're going to come in buzzing, like you said, against Villarreal team, a team that, yeah, they've scratched through in Europa League, but domestically it just hasn't been there as of late. Unai Emery does have a very sound team, but at times that defense can be very shaky. We'll see if Zagreb are able to take advantage, and if they are able to take advantage early on, it could mean trouble for Villarreal.
Yeah, again, I think that this is potentially Villarreal's fixture to lose. On paper, obviously, they are the more well-rounded team. I think it would have to take another miracle. But don't count Zagreb out this early. Again, you can't count any team out at this point of the tournament. There's a reason that they're all here. Should be a really interesting matchup to see how that plays out. Now, if we look ahead to the semifinals, April 29th, we'll get the first leg. May 6th, the second leg. And matchups as they stand, Phil, United versus Granada, the winner will face off against the winner of Ajax Roma. Another big potential matchup there. And of all the possibilities, I think all of these have the potential to be really good matches.
Of course. And if you look to the other side, Arsenal versus Slavia Praha, that winner will take on the winner of Zagreb and Villarreal. As far as narratives go, Alex, how fun would it be to see Arsenal taking on Unai Emery, their former manager at Villarreal, in the semifinal? That would be a heated matchup. Of course, Unai Emery trying to prove that he deserved to stay at the Arsenal, and of course, Arsenal trying to prove that they are better off without him there.
Yeah, that matchup, again, it's very interesting to see. We know that that would be another hard-fought matchup, but we know that both of those teams do have to make it through two legs against two very good opponents. It'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. But that wraps it up for this episode. Thank you guys again very much for listening. And make sure to follow Cleats First, Logic Second on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Cleats, then Logic.
And of course, Remember, meat first, soccer second. Have a great week.